Mount Emei is one of 4 sacred Buddhist mountains in China, and as such, it's been treated as a special protected place for almost 3,000 years. It lies on the border of the Oriental deciduous forest and Chinese subtropical forest biogeographical provinces. This location, at the interface of 2 regions, means that elements of both provinces are present. This results in relatively high species diversity. Added to its crossroads location, Emei also displays a wide vertical range with 5 types of subtropical forest due to its variation in altitude from 500 to 3,100 meters. Emei stands out as one of the most diverse areas of its type in China. It's of particular distinction for its high floral diversity, with many endemic and many ancient and endangered plants. Mount Emei's history has been documented and recorded for over 2,000 years, during which time a rich Buddhist cultural heritage has accumulated, including cultural relics, architectural heritage, collected calligraphy, paintings, tablet inscriptions, and earthenware. A cable car, which leads to the golden summit of the mountain, brings some 300,000 people a year to the sacred mountain forest zone. Because of its size and the relative inaccessibility of its terrain, much of Emei remains untouched and unspoiled. The revival of Buddhism reinforces its protection as the monks can play a quasi-warden role. The cultural significance of this area lies to a large extent in the relationship between the man-made element and the natural environment. Splendid Mount Emei was created by the Himalayan mountain building movement and the later uplift of the Qinghai Tibet Plateau. It contains geological features of all the periods following the Cambrian period. The special geological feature is the precondition of the growth of various species and beautiful sceneries. The 4 mountains formed a pilgrimage circuit, and their symbolism expanded as time went on. For example, they became emblematic of the 4 cardinal points, the 4 fundamental elements, the 4 heavenly kings, the 4 treasures, and so on. There exists an interrelation of Buddhist concepts and practices with native Chinese traditions. In terms of wildlife, Emei has a species complement typical of the biogeographic region. There are some rare mammals and birds, but it doesn't stand out for its fauna as much as it does for its flora. Similarly, its scenery, though spectacular, is typical of many of the scenic mountains in China and doesn't match that of the 2 other Sichuan mountain sites of Huangsban and Wulingyan. It's 5 kilometers to the top of Emei Shan, much of it consisting of stone steps. If visitors walk it all, plan for a full day up and a full day down, around 10 hours on foot. The visitor to the top of Emei climbs through pine groves up thousands of steps that are draped by flowering bushes in the spring. Mount Emei was first inhabited as early as 10,000 years ago. Its history over the past 2,000 years has been recorded in literature and chronicles. The temple architecture of Mount Emei is the embodiment of its Buddhist culture. There are over 30 temples, 10 of them large and very old. They're in local traditional style, and most are built on hillsides, taking advantage of the terrain. The temples are considered masterpieces of creative ingenuity in the way they adapt to the natural environment and beauty of the holy mountain. The remarkable architecture can be seen in the unconventional monastery building that shelters a substantial body of monks year-round. It's made of stone that was mined on location. With accurate historical records of events that occurred over 3,000 years ago, China has some of the oldest recorded history of any country on earth. It's from the legendary era, however, long before historical records were compiled, that we find the first mention of sacred mountains in China. Among certain mountains believed to be sacred was the belief that mountains, especially the tallest ones, were pillars separating heaven from earth. According to one ancient Chinese cosmology, the realm of heaven covered the realm of earth, and from this belief arose the idea that heaven could fall down if not supported. The mountains were believed to perform this function. Another reason for the sanctification of particular mountains is the legends and myths of both shamanism and early Taoism. These legends speak of sages and mystics, often called immortals, who lived deep in the mountain wilderness, existed on diets of rare herbs and exotic elixirs, and lived to be 400 to 800 years old. Buddhism was introduced into China in the 1st century AD via the Silk Road from India to Mount Emei. Pugong, a medicinal plant farmer, built the Puguang Hall on the Golden Summit at this time. By the 3rd century, the Pǔxián doctrine of Buddhism was dominant on Mount Emei, and the Chinese monk Huichi built the Pǔxián Temple, now the Anian Temple, at the foot of the Guanxinpo Terrace. Each of the Buddhist sacred mountains is considered to be the dwelling place of a bodhisattva. These particular bodhisattvas are mythological spiritual beings that have dedicated themselves to the service of assisting all sentient creatures in the transcendence of worldly suffering and the attainment of enlightenment. These Buddhist mountains and some Taoist peaks became the primary pilgrimage destinations of both China's masses and also the ruling elite. Over many centuries, the monastic centers developed into great centers of scholarship, art and philosophy, with hundreds of temples and thousands of monks and nuns. It's been fashionable to examine the transformation of Buddhism in China and the manner in which Buddhist perceptions and practices have been modified to fit into a Chinese environment.